For those of you who don't know me, and for those of you who've been coming to some of the other live events, you're probably getting very tired of hearing my voice. But thank you so much for joining us tonight this is our second to last event of the Compassion Arts Festival. The festival is an annual event of Compassion Arts. Compassion Arts is an arts and education initiative for advancing the understanding of and compassion for animals and the earth we share. The festival is an event we put on every fall that with a collective of artists and educators and advocates to show the ways that creativity can be used as an instrument for cultivating connection, respect, empathy, and compassion for animals, including human animals. So the title of this event is Finding Healing and Creating Peace in a Violent World. This is a roundtable discussion about compassion fatigue with the following presenters: April Lang, who is a therapist and author of the book Animal Persuasion; Lisa Levinson, who is an animal activist and the director of the In Defense of Animals Sustainable Activism Campaign; and animal caregiver and humane educator Marla Andrews, who is currently working at Unity Farm Sanctuary, but who had a long career with the Massachusetts SPCA. During this roundtable, we will explore some of the ways for developing internal resources for preventing burnout, or ways to navigate becoming overwhelmed by the magnitude of suffering in the world for animals, both human and non-human, and learning how to remain strong through healing and working with compassion fatigue when it comes up. In a world where unimaginable violence against animals, as well as humans, has been normalized to the point that it's rendered almost invisible in a culture of indifference, is it possible to have self-care, find joy in living, and have a peaceful heart with the knowledge of animals' suffering and the cruelty that they endure? Is it possible for the work of healing to matter and the commitment to use our lives as an instrument of peace when confronted with losing a sense of hope or becoming depressed with feelings of powerlessness or despair? These questions and others will be explored in this hour-long presentation with our roundtable participants. This is a webinar, and so during the webinar, you can write in your questions in the Q&A portion of your Zoom screen, which Compassion Arts colleague and our Zoom tech host, Donald Vincent, will read to the panelists. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can. The way the format's going to go is I'll introduce each panelist and they'll speak for a little bit, 5 or 10 minutes, to talk a little bit about themselves and how their work relates to compassion fatigue. And then I'll ask them a few questions, which they'll answer and discuss with each other. And then we'll open it up to the audience for questions from you. So without further ado, I'm going to start with our first panelist is April Lang.
Hi there. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So hello, everyone. It's welcome to our roundtable on compassion fatigue. So my name is April Lang, and I'm a psychotherapist in private practice in New York City. And one of my specialties is working with ethical vegans and animal advocates. I'm also a writer and published a book called Animal Persuasion, a guide for ethical vegans and animal advocates in managing life's emotional challenges. And I'm also a humane educator. So I love going into schools and educating students on all issues related to animals. But enough about me. So we're here to discuss compassion fatigue. So what exactly is compassion fatigue? Well, essentially, it's another name for burnout. It's when we have exhausted and depleted ourselves emotionally and really have nothing left to give. And compassion fatigue can manifest both physically and psychologically. And I see a lot in my clients. I see it specifically when clients are having a lot of ruminating thoughts about animal cruelty in all its forms. also commonly referred to as institutionalized animal abuse. And I also see it with people who have really unrealistic expectations of what they are able to accomplish in their fight against animal cruelty. So, with regards to the former, I help people manage their thoughts. I help them shift uncomfortable, disturbing images. And with the latter, clients and I will look at their expectations. And what we'll often find is that what people want to do in their advocacy is oftentimes not what they're able to do. And what I mean by able to do is this. A lot of times when people choose advocacy, they're not thinking about their personalities. They're not thinking about their temperaments. They're not thinking about their abilities, their time constraints. And when that happens, that will also often lead to frustration, lead to disappointment. And that in turn will lead to very often overwhelm and just a feeling of lack of motivation, which is really one of the telltale signs of compassion fatigue. So throughout our roundtable, we will be exploring more what some of the causes are, the manifestations, how to deal with compassion fatigue with my other wonderful colleagues over here. And during the Q&A, feel free to reach out to us and we will get into more detail. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Oh, I'm going to say a quick word about Lisa. Sorry. Lisa Levinson is our next panelist. Lisa is the director of In Defense of Animal Sustainable Activism Campaign, which offers emotional and spiritual support for animal activists via a helpline, support groups, and online events. Lisa organizes vegan spirituality groups and retreats to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. She co-organizes the Interfaith Vegan Coalition to help places of worship go vegan. She also co-founded Public Eye Artists for Animals to teach compassion for animals through the arts, and founded the Toad Detour to help migrating toads safely cross the road in Philadelphia. Lisa, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much, Ellie. It's really a pleasure to be here today with everyone. This topic is near and dear to my heart because, as Ellie knows, when I was in Philadelphia, did a lot of TNR, trap, neuter, and release of cats, stray and feral kitties. And so being in the trenches there, you really get to feel some of that compassion fatigue in the moment, because things happen in the rescue world. Sometimes the animals that we're trying so desperately to care for die, accidents happen. Sometimes people get upset with us. Sometimes we get in situations that are dangerous. And all of this can bring upon that feeling of overwhelm and distress and anxiety that relates to the work that we're doing with animals. So one of the things that came out of that, a positive, maybe a silver lining, was that later I did help to curate and develop the Crazy Cat Ladies exhibit to really honor and celebrate all of the amazing rescue work that's done by many people, some women, some not women, of all different kinds, who are helping these cats around the country. And I think that Carolyn Mullen might have mentioned that in one of her lectures earlier with the Compassion Arts Festival. So that can happen when you're just on the front lines and whatever you're doing. You may be witnessing animal cruelty on Facebook, just watching the images, signing the petitions. You could be doing your own rescue work. You could work at a farm sanctuary, and a lot of animals who come through may be suffering. Sometimes they die, and all of these things have an impact on each of us. And so I think that's a lot of what the compassion fatigue is. It's that impact, how it affects us emotionally. And also it has to do with our energy level, because we're putting so much love and heart and passion into the work that we do to help others, and these others are animals. And then sometimes we neglect to take care of ourselves and ask for our own needs to be met. So part of learning how to manage the feelings of overwhelm and distress is also giving ourselves time to take care of ourselves. And so that can be something as simple as talking with a friend, going for a walk in nature, exercising, and making sure that we have enough food, and also rest, some of those key essentials. So self-care can be a big part of it. And another piece might also be looking at our interactions with others. So having this way of communicating with compassion with the other people that we might be working with. Could be in animal rescue situations or animal rights organizations, but really being respectful of one another. I know that Paul Sigorsky, who has done some research on activist burnout, found that a lot of the issues that activists face have to do with infighting. So it's really important how we communicate with each other, and that when we're being compassionate with the animals, we can also extend that to other people. So what I do with In Defense of Animals is that I run a support line for animal activists. Yes, people can call and get free counseling. And when they call, it's also a nice opportunity to get a sense of validation. They really get to um, hear and be reflected back the sense of kindness, a sense of value for what they're doing, and also sometimes have a shoulder to cry on. We have an opportunity to really talk about some of the things that other people may not understand. So even just a quick example, today someone called whose animal had died, her dog had died, and she was very upset. And at the end of sharing her story with me, she said, "Nobody I know really understands this and how deeply upset I am about it." And so just being able to have someone to talk to really understands and gets that for many of us, animals are people too. So we want to be able to feel respected and valued in our emotions and supported. So that's part of the support line. We also offer different resources. We have an activist resource list with tons of physical, emotional, and spiritual resources. So for anyone who is curious and wants to find out more about the um, support line and also the resources that we have for activists, including some webinars like this that are focused on tools for self-care, you can find those at I'll give you the support line phone number, which is 800-705-0425, or you could look up idausa.org/activist support. And either way, you'll find someone. You can also reach out by text, by email. So part of why we're doing this is just to let people know that there are many of us who've been through this, and we want to offer our support to others to help to continue, so that we can all continue our noble work for the animals, but also enjoy ourselves at the same time and take care of who we are too. So I think I'll leave it at that for now and pass it on over to Marla, our next speaker.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Marla now. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. That was wonderful. Our third speaker on the panel is Marla Andrews. I'm just going to read a bit here and turn it over to her. Marla Andrews is a lifelong animal advocate who brings her enthusiasm for working with all ages to overseeing education programs at Unity Farm Sanctuary. She holds a master's degree in humane education and animal welfare and has extensive experience in animal protection after 15 years with the MSPCA. She is passionate about the human-animal bond, writing her master's thesis on compassion fatigue in animal caregivers, and also is certified as a pet loss grief specialist. Each of our speakers, let's see. Oh no, I'm good here. I think I covered that. All right, sorry, Marla.
No worry. No worry.
Turn it over to you.
Thank you for including me, Ellie. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I come from a background that is long and checkered, I call it. I started working in animal advocacy way back when I was in 5th grade, and I don't think I've stopped since then. My path has led me in many different directions, many different experiences. I had started out working as a veterinary assistant, moving my way up as a biologist, working with live animals, working in research, also spending time with the New England Aquarium on their seal pup rescues. I feel like I've been in the front lines and also a little bit in the shadows, depending on the different places that I've worked. And all of them have brought me to a point of understanding completely about compassion fatigue. I refer to it, as many people do, as the cost of caring. And I think that a lot of us can relate to that, that definition, because most of us who are working with animals are caregivers, at least for animals. Some of us are caregivers to animals and people. But what I've found working in the front lines of adoption, as well as other places where I'm working with the animals and the public, is that the feelings that we often have for animals are misunderstood. For me, working with animals has always been a calling that I've referred to as a calling similar to the clergy. It's always been part of me. It's the fabric of who I am. And I've been witness to many things that I wish that I didn't at certain points in my life. I remember as a young person, literally in high school, working at a veterinary hospital, seeing many different Greyhound not rescues, but many different Greyhound trucks pull up where the animals had to be euthanized because they weren't winning. Going to horse racing tracks and working on the animals there and seeing what goes on behind the scenes. Things like that stay with you. The images stay with you. And a lot of us don't know how to really process that. When we go into something thinking that we can save them all or save the world or even just save the ones in front of us, sometimes that's not just disappointing, but it can floor us and stop us in our tracks. And we really need to learn how to take care of ourselves. I've learned how to identify when things are getting too heated for me. Hopefully I don't let them get to that point, because there are a lot of things we can do in advance. But when situations arise, I've learned to identify different things that change in me. Do I get angry? Or sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I'll walk through and I'm actually angry at the world, and sometimes I'll take it out on, snapping at my daughter, or even looking at my beloved dog, who I love dearly, and I do love my daughter as well. And recognize that something's underlying in me, and I really need to breathe and decompress. What I have found in the past is that cost of caring ultimately comes out on us as humans. But the thing that makes me very much in tune with this is realizing that if something happens to me, if I'm not healthy, then the animals that I want to reach ultimately can't be helped, and they can't be healthy. So that usually brings me back to where I need to be. I've spent many years working different elements of working with animals and animal advocacy, but I have found humane education in the last 20 years. First, when I started as a volunteer with the MSPCA and developing some programs there, and now my past 2+ years at Unity Farm Sanctuary have given me a great platform to do many things with this very young sanctuary. Seeing how we can, through education, educate and empower people to make better decisions. And my passion can come through with the animals standing right in front of me as ambassadors to the plights. And I feel as though that's a great place for me. It's a great match. And of course, there's always a limitless amount of work that can be done, but I feel satisfied, and I feel that my ability to identify compassion fatigue now allows me to help people that I work with, the public, volunteers, and I feel like my whole journey has led me here to be able to help not only animals now, but people as well.
Thank you, Marla. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Well, then I'm going to ask a couple questions. I'm going to kind of jump off of what you were just talking about to the group. Maybe I'll swing back to April and let you guys discuss. So what are some of the warning signs of compassion fatigue? This is a multi-level question. What are some of the warning signs for like preventing it before it really takes hold? But if it's already in your life, if it's already really full blown in your life, like what can you do to navigate it? And then also, as a second part of the question, what if you're working with others who are in the throes of compassion fatigue, and we can't control other people. If they're if we're working with others who are not being able to, in having difficulty. So I'm going to swing back to April and then let you guys get your thoughts on this.
Sure. So some of the symptoms of compassion fatigue, you can be very angry, you can be very sad, very depressed, very lethargic. You could feel, you could feel very ill. You could have gastrointestinal problems. You could have headaches. You can want to isolate yourself, just find yourself having no motivation, snapping at people, a lot of crying going on. So those are some of the really common that I've seen, certainly in the clients that come to me. Those are some of the signs that I have found. To your question about what can you, I guess you want to know what can be done. Is that what you're asking, a bit of what can be done? So some of what I have people do is, first off, most important is first, see if you can what you can identify is compassion fatigue, because it could be something else, and make sure, like what Lisa was talking about in Marla, the self-care is really important. Exercising, eating well, having people to talk to, but the people that you talk to, having people that really get you, because there's a lot of people that will say, yes, I'll listen to you, but it's that you kind of feel that they're not really there and that they're not meeting you where you are. So that's really important. Also, looking at your situation. So are you working with, let's say, animal activists that are disappointing you, that you're, fighting with a lot? Are you with a group? Perhaps some people are working in organizations where there's a lot of infighting going on, and that's going to make you feel like you can't do the work that you want to do. So kind of look at your life and see, do changes need to be made? I also will tell people a lot of the time, at the end of the day, focus on what is going well, because so often in life, our brain has a negativity bias, so we just go to what's bad. So think about what is going well. What did you accomplish, right? So if perhaps in a type of advocacy, like you were doing a protest and you wanted it to go a certain way and things didn't go well. Well, maybe what did go well is that you've got people making wonderful signs, and that was what went well. Sometimes we just need to focus on that and be mindful of not just going down the path of all the things that are not working. So those are just a couple of things to do. And as I said, when people come in and I work with them on, they have disturbing thoughts, right, or disturbing images. So I'll work with them on how to shift that. There are different ways. So if somebody keeps they experience something really horrible, something really traumatic, and they can't get that image out of their mind. I'm guessing all of you have had that at times, helping them through different exercises, be able to shift that. So when they think about the image, it doesn't have the same kind of potency. So those are just a couple of ideas.
Thanks. Lisa. I'm actually going to ask Donald, can we have it so that we could see all of us as like a panel on the screen at the same time? Oh, there we go. Okay, thanks. That way they can talk to each other. Hi, Lisa. Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi,
Thanks,
Ellie.
Donald.
Yeah, so this is, I think that April went over some of the symptoms, but you can also notice that you're feeling exhausted or overwhelmed, just like wow, so much to do, and how do I get this all done? I mean, those can also be common symptoms.
Mhm.
So that sense of crying, easy to cry, easy to snap, those are things that I think become apparent when we're experiencing that sense of compassion fatigue. And there are so many wonderful ways to pull ourselves out of that. And I think that's the resources that April mentioned are key. So sometimes it might be helpful to, if you're having that image, I get a lot of calls about, oh, I have this image that's in my mind and I can't get it out the way that that April described. Sometimes I like to have people even if they can't physically do anything to help that animal, just to offer like either an intention or a prayer, something along those lines of healing that you can bring to that animal. And you're doing this through your mind, but also it's kind of a spiritual practice to send this energy and love and compassion towards the animal. And personally, I find that this helps me sometimes when I'm not able to physically take an action to help them. Then I call upon those other spiritual practices to find peace within, because I feel as though I am actually helping these animals. Just like people do Reiki, which is a hands-on healing technique. And I do practice this, and I'll practice this on animals that I find on the side of the road sometimes who have passed. And when you practice that type of energy work, as you give the Reiki, you also receive some of the Reiki. So part of it is giving the animal some love and also giving yourself that sense of peaceful, positive, calming energy as well. So that can also help. And I think that those are two strategies among many. And sometimes when people call us, I'll go walk through something like that with them, depending on what they're struggling with, whether it's, infighting and communication issues, or whether it's something along those lines of um, almost like a witnessing some trauma that you've seen that happen with animals. And it can be very difficult, sometimes even traveling, which a lot of us aren't doing as much right now during the COVID times. But if you see something either on the road or in your travels, um, and you're not able to stop and do something, that can be trying on the soul. I will also say that taking action is one of the best ways to relieve some of the compassion fatigue too. And it might be whether you're taking action by signing a petition, or making a donation, or stopping to see if that animal on the side of the road is struggling or maybe needs to be taken to the wildlife rehab center. Sometimes there are things that we can really do to help them. So I think assessing the situation and figuring out what are things I can do, and also keeping that in balance. So I think if you feel pulled, like you have to do everything, you're the only one who can save this animal or these animals, to know that we are part of a larger movement, and also a very great moral trajectory, as Martin Luther King said, that is really aiming towards justice, and aiming towards kindness and compassion. So we're part of a large movement that we're all working together on this very massive undertaking to bring compassion towards animals as part of one of the fundamental human values. And that is happening in every conversation that we have and everything that we're doing, and also in how we treat ourselves. So I think I'll pause there.
Thank you. Thank you. Marla.
I think that all of those things that both Lisa and April mentioned are very, very true, and very applicable to so very many of us. I think prevention is preventing compassion fatigue to the best we can is a very, very huge component in recognizing that we all need to be healthy. Again, for me to get my message across about the plights of animals and educating people, I know I need to take good care of myself, and that includes getting time off. And I know that a lot of advocates don't necessarily feel that that's as important as the cause itself, but I will assure you that it is. If we work nonstop and for the cause, for any cause, with ignoring just our moment to breathe and to just check in with ourselves, again, ultimately we lose, the animals lose. And that means for me taking vacation, even sometimes against my will. I need to take a couple of days off. I need to not check my emails. I need to not worry so much about what's happening back on the home front. I remember when I was with the MSPCA, again, as a volunteer before I even started in humane education, I would go away for a couple of days and then come back and wonder if that animal that I walked was going to be there, or was going to find a home or be euthanized. And what we discovered kind of as a team later on was helping the organization that you're working with relieve some of the pressure from maybe just one or two people, spreading out the decision making, making sure we're looking out for each other. And by that, I mean, at least when you're talking about euthanasia, and thankfully that's changing a bit as we move forward, at least in this part of the country, where we're finding more and more homes for animals. But at the height of it, we were making decisions every single week, for animals, because we didn't have space for them in sheltering. And sheltering is such a difficult place to be. So instead of the manager making the decision, we would end up having Thursdays kind of a roundtable where we all discussed the animals that we had in front of us and the space that we had. And ultimately, yes, one individual will make the decision, but not after everybody has a voice and a chance to be heard. And hopefully that not only helps the individuals who are working, who are less powerful perhaps, but it also helps the manager at the top take away some of that strain that they feel in decision making, because everybody suffers from compassion fatigue if you're walking a dog at a shelter or if you're a manager at the shelter. So again, at the very top of prevention at the organizational level too, taking care of the organization as a whole, making sure people get time off, making sure there's something on the calendar that has nothing to do with animal welfare, planning events for the group that have nothing to do with fighting the fight and fighting the cause 24/7. Not just to show that we're well-rounded people, but just to let us all breathe and be away from the intensity of bearing witness and making difficult decisions and things like that. And I go back to what Lisa was talking about for me, the word is reframing, learning how to measure the successes. I've always tried to measure them in baby steps. As an adult, I say we measure our successes in animal welfare in baby steps. And I was one of those kids that said, I'm going to sashay out on the ice floes and I'm going to go and throw my body over those baby harp seals and save them all. And I realized as an adult that that's really not the way that it works. I mean, for most of us at least. So we take success, I take successes very personally and very seriously, because that's how we all move forward. We could not do what we're doing, none of us, if we were going to count the number of lives really that we can't save. I don't think that's a healthy place to be. And I don't mean look closing our eyes to it. But I mean, we all acknowledge and we all know the magnitude of what we're up against, whether it's an animal sheltering or it's following a slaughter truck and bearing witness to the many other places where we can experience compassion fatigue. And we don't need to be reminded of those numbers, but we do need to be reminded of our successes. And I often think, how would I talk to somebody else who is experiencing compassion fatigue? What advice would I give them? And then try and take that for myself. Because I think that we all are kinder to other people sometimes than we are to ourselves. We can't get lost in that.
Yeah, one of the things, this is great. I'm really getting so much out of this. One of the topics that came up even through the artist roundtable and the subject of a lot of people's work is, which lives are grievable. And so there's this part of whether people are, fostering animals, or they're taking in animals, or they're doing TNA. Maybe they don't work at an organization, but they're, just, really in the world in a deeply empathic way. There's I developed this thing that I say, even if I see a visual image, I actually got it from Michael Herron's show, The Animal Show. It's like I sort of built on something that's in his show. And if I see, because to me, one of the things that's almost unbearable, as it's almost like I feel like I need to hold the grief because no one else is grieving. So I have to carry this. I have to, because no one else, it's as if the animal doesn't even exist. And it says, I see you, I'm sorry, I'm with you, we're trying. And I say that over and over, I see you, I'm sorry, I'm with you, we're trying. And I just repeat it over, and it sort of helps me because I hold the space. I hold the space mentally. And I really believe there's a power in holding the space mentally and emotionally. And I want to segue into the next question, and then we'll open it up. So we live in this world where, the suffering of animals is intentionally kept, it's invisible. And so, we are confronted with a lot of seeming indifference, from the regular, it just Thanksgiving alone, it's very hard to sit around a table and there's a dead animal in the middle of the table, but no one else is seeing the turkey as a dead animal. So the indifference is very it's very grating, that creates its own type of compassion fatigue. And the other component of that is I feel that society in a way creates this category for animal people. We're the crazy animal people. It's kind of like we're the cleanup crew for the disposability of animals. And so it's kind of like, and in a similar way, even so with veganism or vegetarianism, it's like, oh, well, they'll be the vegetarian, they'll be the vegan, I can sort of do what I want. So when you're just going about your daily life, even if you're not interacting with animals, there's this constant, it's a never ending reminder. You're always in the world in this very different way. So, so I wanted to ask you, how do you work with that? Wherever you want to start. I guess start with April.
So how do I work with it? With my clients specifically, or
both with you and with your clients? Sure.
Yeah. The old adage, you can help, sometimes, it's like you can help do more for other people than you can for yourself. So at times, I go through life, and of course I am deeply triggered on a constant basis, we all are. So I have to remind myself about, what I'm able to do. And I also remind myself about all the good that's happening. Like Lisa was referring to, it's like a sea change is happening. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in terms of new vegan products out there, clothing and food, more awareness about animal abuse, and not just animal abuse, but the beauty of animals and how intelligent they are. Right. So I remind myself about that. And with my clients, I try to, do the same thing. And I don't remember, one of you had said something about reframing. I don't know if that was Lisa, right? Or was you, Marla? Sorry. Reframing is really important. It's about what are you focusing on? Oh, well, I'm not doing enough. Well, actually, and I was talking to somebody about that tonight. It's, well, why don't you look at what is working? What if all the wonderful things that you have done for animals? So like when I said earlier, one of the things that I suggest to people is at the end of a day, write all the things that worked well. Or when you're thinking about some advocacy work, what went well. And every day that you write down a little bit of this, at the end of the week, you can look and say, oh, a lot of good things happened, because it is easy to just focus on the bad. So with my clients, that is a lot of what I do, because so many of them come in and they're in a state of overwhelm, oh, I just read another horrible thing about animals, or I saw this, or I saw an image on Facebook, right? So trying to also help people kind of be mindful about what they're able to take in, you know, how much you tolerate. And when you feel physiologically that, you know, okay, I'm getting to a point where I'm getting really triggered and agitated and overwhelmed, stop, take a break, do some breathing exercises, take a walk, whatever. Because if you don't heed your physiological signs of when you've had enough of taking in what's all the negativity of animal abuse out there, you're never going to be able to continue doing the work. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Well, so I think I'll take over there from where April was, and this idea of having balance. So I started to, after a while, collect good news about animals, collect some wonderful stories, because it helped me to balance out some of the negative news I was getting. And there is a lot of positive news, actually, when you look for it. And even there is a Facebook group called Good News for Animals, or Animal Good News, something like that. So you can actually join that group and get some good news for animals. I think that's really important for us and our well-being. And it's almost like if you do hear a really tragic story, the antidote for that might be a heartwarming story. Another a great resource for that is this publication called The Dodo. So The Dodo, which many of us know, they have such heartwarming stories. And I actually do this for myself. I take a moment. I'm like, I'm going to take a moment in my busy day and watch this little video of this reunion between this animal and their person, or it brings some lightness to my heart. It brings some relaxation in my chest. I can breathe easier. So I think, you know, we're not only collecting all of this trauma and this suffering that's going on, we're also, we can have enough space where we can bring in some of these positive stories that can help to keep our movement also in a place of uplift, you know, so that others will want to join in, because we've got so much good news and so many wonderful things are happening. And we're also working to fight some of the evil forces that are causing suffering and harm. And the and is an important one, which is that we're trying to uplift humanity and all the animals and the whole planet. So yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess for me, it's I'm coming to this point in my life, and I'm grateful for so many things, and practicing gratitude, and that goes for everything in my life, including the work with the animals. I realize that I have 15 turkeys in front of me at Unity or something like that, or maybe it's got to be even a little bit more than that, depending on how many Kathy has taken in today. But I have X amount of turkeys that are representing such a huge problem, 250 million turkeys killed every year. But I think, okay, well, I've got the 15 in front of me, and they're my little ambassadors, and they are here safe, and they're well cared for and loved and appreciated and respected. And I get to bring in as many people as I can bring in with masks during our COVID time. And I can show people what turkeys really are like and why they're valuable, and all the good that can come from all of us if we stop and make different choices. And we're all empowered to make, choices. And that to me is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I start my tours sometime by saying my goal is, of course, I wish everybody leaves here after their tour and they're able to tell me they're going to be a vegan, but I'm realistic in my my undertaking. And sometimes I can just be satisfied that people are going to think about it now. Maybe they're going to make a change, and maybe then they're going to have some oat milk in their coffee tomorrow, or they're going to consider a meatless Monday, which might lead to a meatless Tuesday. And really just thinking that these animals have feelings, and they're beautiful, and they're worthy of our consideration, just because they are who they are, not because we expect something from them, and make them worthy in our own minds. So for that, I'm grateful. I don't focus on, I know how many animals we're not reaching, and it tears me apart, but I have to go forward, and I have to realize that I have the opportunity to change minds with the animals in front of me. Just a quick thought you had mentioned to me and enlightened me again, Ellie, about lots of people's not working with organizations, people who are there doing all the in the trenches work by themselves, and how important that is for them to also take breaks and realize that they may need a month off, or they may need more than that. Maybe they need a year off. Those are so important. Those people that are doing that type of work, whether it's feral cat rescue or if it's any of these foster care situations, are so vital for freeing up shelter staff and volunteers, that they're equally as important as everybody and anybody else, that they need to know that. They need to know their value, and they also need to know their personal value. They need to care for themselves.
Thank you. Yeah, and I love that, and there's so many different levels to compassion for animals. There are people that I know who have literally sacrificed, most of their lives to some for wildlife rehabilitation, or others for companion animal rescue, who are not, they're not vegans, but they've spent their life savings, in helping other animals. So there's we're all in just very, we all do what we can do. So with this, I'm going to turn it over and ask Donald to read some of the questions. I'm going to mute myself so I don't jump in. Let's see what we have from the audience.
Hey, Ellie, I put some of those questions in the chat box to you all, but Tabitha Lynch says, Ellie, Lisa, April, Marla, and Donald, thank you so much for all the wonderful work you do for human and non-human animals. I've been looking forward to this talk all day. Such helpful advice tonight. Much gratitude. So I did want to say that because that was not a question. And then Kale says, best way to handle anger that's brought on by compassion fatigue. The best way to what's the best way to handle anger that's brought about by compassion fatigue?
Yeah. So I can answer that. This is Lisa, and I know Kel. And Kel's such an amazing, devoted animal activist, and we know each other from my work in the Philadelphia area, where I was kind of managing public eye artists for animals and the Toad Detour, and started vegan spirituality there. So when we're angry, just like when we're angry about other things, being able to express it. So it's like there's two parts to it. The first thing is to get it out, because anger is an emotion. It moves up and out. That's the energy of anger. So we want to get it out. We don't want it to stay stuck in our bodies. And you can do that through, exercise, through a punching bag, through going for a brisk walk, through screaming in a pillow, hitting a pillow, throwing a pillow. There's lots of things we could do with pillows. But this idea of just getting out that anger and frustration if you're feeling it in the moment. And then a part two, after we express that level of anger, the body actually needs to repair itself and restore. So coming into a place of like some of the practice that Marla was sharing about gratitude might be helpful in that moment. Also, you can vision, what would I want to be different? What do you vision that could be different? And what would that look like? Spend some time in that place. So having this way to express what's going on, your anger, and then coming back into some of the practices, even from Buddhism, might be helpful to address, to find that calming centering after expressing anger. Like, may all beings be at peace. There's some, it's very similar to what Ellie was saying, your practice that you had those certain words that you said. There's the Buddhist practice that does that, and there's also a Hawaiian ceremony called Ho'oponopono, which is the forgiveness ceremony. So you can offer some level of forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and coming into a place of peace and harmony.
I'll just add something quickly, if I may. Again, to me, it goes back to a lot of, and I haven't always framed things the right way. I started off being an angry person all the time, couldn't believe that people couldn't see it my way. But I realized that those are lost opportunities as well. So one of the examples that somebody taught me a long time ago, when I first started in sheltering, I was outside walking dogs, and a very expensive car drove up to the shelter. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a great donation. It was early in the morning. And she pulled right up to the front of it, and she proceeded to walk with her high heels around to the other side of the car. And she took out an adorable little beagle that was several years old on a leash. And she said, "Here, my daughter went to college and I don't want it anymore." And I remember feeling so unbelievably devastated that this could actually happen in the world, and angry with her. And I went to the manager of the shelter later on and sat down with her, and she said, "But you know what, Marla, think about it. They had the wherewithal to think of us to bring their dog to, her dog to. She could have left that dog by the road. She could have left that dog somewhere else." And for me, it kind of changed the way I've thought things. I mean, I still was annoyed that this occurs in the world. But the positive thing that came out of that is, wow, that animal had a safe landing pad with us. And for that, I'm truly grateful. That animal didn't end up in some horrible circumstance. It probably would end up in, and I know it ended up in a good second home, home, and hopefully permanent forever home at that point. So I do think that anger is something that we all deal with at some point with the amount of the amount of traumas that are inflicted on animals in such an inhumane world at times. But I think that, again, going back and trying to really think, and it's not coloring our glasses so we don't see the horrors, it's actually maybe looking at things just a little bit differently. So yes, we can cope, but also the truth of the world is that there is some beauty out there, and there's a lot of good out there. And being in animal welfare, sometimes that gets lost.
I just was gonna, I'll just add one tiny thing in terms of anger. It depends also what the anger is. Sometimes, we're angry at somebody for doing something really awful, and towards an animal or towards a situation, if we're working with another advocate or something. So it's important to just also take some time, like Lisa's saying, and allow the anger, allow yourself to process the anger. But once you process, don't speak to anybody until you've processed it, because once you try to approach somebody when you're at a heightened state of activation, you're never going to be able to get your message across. So take some time to just, deal with your anger, decompress. It will, as Lisa said again, it will flow through. It's just a feeling, and the feelings go. And then see, depending on the situation, the person that you're angry at, is there something that can be done? Can you speak to that person once you're calmed down? And is there a way to rectify the situation? Because that might make a difference too, because you're seeing something happen. Now, again, that's a very specific situation. That's more interpersonal, but I wanted to throw in that little interpersonal piece too.
And the other thing that when you talk about processing the anger, I mean, for me, finding ways to use creativity, writing. I mean, like I use like stream of conscious writing. I use I'll like do a meditation and imagine a song I really love that expresses my anger, and I'll just imagine it be, it's just like I use any way that you can use creativity. And there are a number of people that Camille DeAngelis, she does workshops to help people who, you don't have to be an artist to learn how to utilize creativity to sort of process things. And it really helps move, especially anger, because anger has so much energy behind it. So, next question.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, panelists. I'm learning so much by listening to you all. The next question is from Kale again. And she says, what is the support number Lisa mentioned with IDA?
Okay, so the support number is, it's 800-705 0425. And then if you, that's the phone number, but you can also find us. I think I mentioned this link before, but if you look up maybe activist support, because our link through IDA is idausa.org and then /activist support. And then you'll find all these different ways to reach out to us. And we do have trained counselors who respond. So we have people who respond to our emails. If somebody does an online chat with us, you'll get a response. And those people are fellow activists. They're also either psychologists or trained in psychology. And we do follow Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication strategies. That's how we communicate with others, through validation and also through mutual respect.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This last question, because I think we are almost out of time, is from someone who has been at every Compassion Arts event. It's Maria Pinto, and she says, how do you handle it when people make fun of your being veggie/vegan to the point of bullying?
Well, I'll jump in on that one just quickly. First off, if somebody is going to be attacking you anyway, they're not in a place that they're going to even be listening for you to say, wait a second, hey, can we talk? You can try that. I mean, you as a first line of defense, so to speak. But if you feel and find that the person is just, beating you down, everything you say, every kind of explanation you give, then you have to know when to turn away, right? Because you're not going to be able to make a difference. So kind of know who the person is, because some people just, that's who they are. They think it's fun, right? So bullies, you're not going to be able to reason with bullies, at least in that moment. That's my experience.
Anyone else?
I feel like I've been dealing with that my whole life. At any given table at any family event, or outside, and I mean, for me, if I have an opportunity just to engage them, my message is clear that I choose kindness and compassion. I have no problem sleeping at night. I don't need to explain myself. I grew up where even relatives would say to me, I can't believe that you won't go and be, I want to be a veterinarian. You're not going to go into human medicine, as if that's not worthy. And they made it clear that it wasn't worthy. How could you do that? I mean, I had lots of practice to get to the point that I am at now. And I get a lot of people that'll come by and say, well, where's my line in the sand? Fish really aren't animals, are they? How many times do I have to hear that? So it's like, no, I think we live in a very different world now. And I think that veganism, vegetarianism are certainly mainstream, much more mainstream than when I was in college, and I was going to cookouts on the weekends and having an empty bun with ketchup. That's what my example, and standing out that way. I don't think that we live like that very, at least around here in my neck of the woods. I don't feel that same ostracizing ways that I did when I was a kid. But I there are plenty of people out there that still think, that's ridiculous. Animals are here for us to use. It was a God-given right. And I referred them to some of the books, my favorite being Dominion on that one. So yeah, I do think that you're right, April. I think some people just like to engage, just to bully and
push the buttons, and it's not, they aren't the ones that are going to be open to hearing, because if they're the ones that are open, they'll let you know. They're going to be asking you a question, and then you can engage, even if they're like, well, come on, why are you vegetarian? What good is it? They're looking for you to engage. Okay. But if they're like, oh, you're an idiot, you're a vegetarian, and what's wrong with you? Bullies in any part of life, you don't engage with them.
Yeah. Just lead by example. They follow or they don't.
I might also just add there's a great book out there by Dr. Melanie Joy called Beyond Beliefs, and she writes a lot about how to communicate with our non-vegan family and friends. And sometimes they might be making comments the way you're describing without realizing the impact it's having on you. And so having some of these communication tools can really help to navigate those situations. And even finding one that's comfortable for you. Like I know Ray Sikora, who runs Plant Peace Daily and does some great talks on how to handle vegan bullying. She sometimes will say, "Why did you say that? I'm just curious why you said that to me." You know, just ask the question back. And that might, then in that moment, the person might realize, yeah, why did I ask that? Or why did I say that? It'll point them towards their own intentions or subconscious ideas that they might have. So I think this vegan bullying does happen. A lot of it is when people are uncomfortable with it and don't know really uh, how to handle it, and so they might lash out that way.
It's insecurity. But also, I need to put my plug in for this, because I think this is an opportunity to talk, I'm sure not to the people that are necessarily doing it, but I do think that vegans can be very hard on people who are still trying to be a vegan, instead of being supportive networks, instead of being let's, rah, 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 you're doing good, keep going. I think that it's all or nothing with a lot of vegans, and I find that to be offensive as a vegan. So that's in part a part of the reason why people don't like vegans, because sometimes they're their own worst enemies. We are our own worst enemies. And I believe that we're not going to get anybody on board unless we're applauding and supporting those who are trying. And that's
great.
my
None
two
of us are in a position to judge. I mean, that's the other thing that, it's been my experience sometimes too, that sometimes people that are the most intractable, that seem like, so they're the people that end up being like incredibly passionate. Like they turn around, years later, you'll meet them and they're whatever, they're doing work for animals or they're vegan, but they're like, and they're very passionate. Sometimes people that seem the most, that are the most upset by someone, they're teasing someone for being an animal rescuer or bully. They're obviously taking a lot of time and a lot of energy to focus on it. So there's something in them that is like engaged by it. And sometimes it ends up turning around where, not that it's our job to make that happen, but a lot of times you'll find out that those people later on down the line will become vegan or become an advocate in some way. Lisa, so I know we're over time, but I'm just going to close with ask you all, like, what is your hope for with your work? What is it that you hope, your greater hope through your work? Wherever you want to start.
I'll start. My hope is for a peaceable kingdom where animals are living freely and as they wish, as they want, with us. And I'm reminded of that every day by being around animals that are living like that. I think, like I said, I think we can all do better. And I hope that after people either visit the sanctuary or take some of our programs, we have all kinds of tours, from story time hours for very young children all the way up through high school and middle school, introduction to animal welfare and ethics, and soon conversations in animal welfare that will start up after the first of the year. I hope that people will feel empowered and by being educated and enlightened in a world that doesn't want us to see. Being enlightened and seeing the truth and recognizing the truth, they'll feel empowered to make a change and a difference for animals.
Thank you, Marla.
I'll jump in, if that's okay, Lisa. Just a quick thing. So in terms of my work, what I would say first is this. Anyone that's dealing with compassion fatigue, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's very common. What I would hope is that people will, if they're feeling that they have compassion fatigue, that they will talk to someone that they trust. And if that doesn't work, to seek out professional help. And, because it may be really entrenched compassion fatigue, it may be an underlying psychological issue. And if you are looking for a vegan therapist, there are a lot of wonderful clinicians out there. And I would say reach out to Lisa or myself, and we can give you some referrals to some people that would be really happy to work with you.
Thank you.
Yes, that's very true, April. We have a wonderful list of ethical vegan therapists that we share with people who contact the support line or reach out to us individually. And so I think of a vision, why do we do this work and what are we hoping for? You know, it's so important to stay connected to that vision of harmony and peace for all beings. And really I think we're entering this really important phase where there's a lot more access to information, there's a lot more awareness of what's going on, and I think that people, our hearts are opening, and that it is a time where we're going to start to see some of the results of all of this incredible new information and all the actions that people are taking worldwide to help animals. So we're all coming close to some kind of tipping point, and I think having that vision and staying connected to it, and that it's part of what we're all working towards, is that kindness for animals.
Well, thank you everyone so much. We're going to wrap it up because we ran a little over, but I would love to do this again. I mean, we could do a part 2. Just thank you so much. And thank you everybody who joined, and take care of yourselves, and thank you for the important work that you do.
Thank you kindly, Ellie, you as well.
Thank you, Ellie, and for Compassion Arts. This is fabulous. We love Compassion Arts.
Oh, we love you.